and welcome to WRPB and WRPB Studios. So even before I get started, I'm going to tell you this, and I've said it a million times, always use a professional. If you don't use a professional, it's going to cost you 10 times more and probably 100 times more in aggravation. And I say that, and I come up with different numbers different times, but just know it's going to cost you more, and it's going to aggravate you to no end. With me is Mike Antheil from Sailfish Solar.
You got it.
Okay. What is Sailfish Solar?
So we are a local solar development company. We develop here along the Treasure Coast in South Florida. We actually will develop anywhere in Florida on a residential level, and then on a commercial level, we can build anywhere in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
So residential, they kind of pigeonhole you to a state?
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, for residential, there's a lot more, kind of individual hand-holding that's going to be necessary. So it's important that the people who are working on the projects, building the projects, servicing, sales, everybody kind of needs to be within arm's length. So we really like to keep our sales force and our service force within driving distance of a particular customer.
Right, because that's just good customer service.
For sure.
Okay. How long are you in the industry?
So I've actually been in the solar industry for 15 years. I was, when I started going back into 2006, give or take 2007, you couldn't even fill this room with all the people that were in the solar industry.
Right.
And now, you could fill this whole building probably, or maybe even more than that. So it's come a long way.
So just so you guys know, and you know me, you know how I am, I really have no filter. I would never bring a solar person in here. And the reason I did was because I had a roofer in who said, I was talking about solar, and he said, "You're right, a lot of scammers out there, but you need to call this guy. He's like upfront, he tell you like it is, and he won't sell something that he doesn't need to sell." So I said, all right, I'm bringing him on. And it's a tough industry because it's got a stigma to it now, right?
It has developed a stigma over the past few years. The reality is solar has become a lot more affordable, and the incentives are pretty significant right now. And we call it what's called the grid parity, right? Which is the golden cross. Basically means the price of electricity has gone up, the cost to build solar has come down. Once it kind of hits that cross point, all of a sudden the residential side of it starts to explode. And with any sort of market that's kind of exploding like that, or is as abundant as that is, a team or a trail of salespeople, follows.
Right.
So the mortgage brokers and the timeshare brokers, if you will, of yesterday are solar salesmen of today.
Okay. I've been in real estate 35 years. When the bubble was here, every librarian, garbage man, and cook became a realtor.
Right.
When that crashed, all those people left real estate and became social media gurus. And when that crashed, they all became coaches.
Right.
I started this company 27 years ago. I was internet radio back then. Internet radio, what's that? Today, everybody goes to a cell phone, thinks they're a videographer and a photographer and a talk show host.
Right.
So we have to deal with that. And sometimes it's a little more difficult than others. So for you got a bunch of people out there banging on doors and lying and saying, "Hey, I know you have this house and I can do solar for you for free."
Right.
It's not free.
No, nothing's free. It is accurate that you can finance, on a signature to where you don't have to put money down.
Right.
So that's not, some companies make it seem as if that's like their special trick or whatever. That's as common as the solar panel itself. Literally any solar company can give you that type of financing. But you're right, it is financing, which means there's a payment which has to be made, which means there's no such thing as free. Now, what I can say is with the vast majority of solar systems, you're going to be cash flow positive on day one. Even if we're only saving you the difference between your power bill and your finance payment, we might be saving you $30, $40, $50 a month. We're at least cash flow positive on day one. If you got to the point where your finance payment is higher than your current utility payment, that would be a problem. That certainly wouldn't.
And that's what I hear. Okay? Because people, and I'm just going to go by my 65 years in this world, knowing that the person that's knocking on my door and lying to me because they went in my mailbox and knew my name and stuff, gets a kickback. You're entitled to commission. Everybody's entitled to work and get paid.
Sure.
But gets a kickback probably on the financing and on the amounts that they do.
Well, we can't. No, we don't get kickback on finance. That you're legally not allowed to do that. But what they will do is they will build in an oversized compensation for themselves.
Okay.
And so they'll make it so their commission. And I've seen where a salesperson, not my guys, right, but where a salesperson's commission will literally be 40-50% of the overall price.
Wow.
And that's a problem in this industry. In fact, there are a handful of problems that need to be addressed, and that's definitely one of them. It's just these guys going out there saying whatever they want, saying whatever they can, and then charging these massive commissions.
And they don't know, because honestly, if you asked me years ago, I would say, yep, they're going to put up solar panels and they're going to put it on the east side of the house. That's not where it goes, right?
South is definitely best. So south is first, west is second, east is third, and then north is last. We typically try to avoid the north.
Why is south first?
Why south first? Well, typically, so in Florida in particular, I mean, when the sun rises and sets, it's, when you're south facing, you're always facing the sun. And so we measure it, there's a couple different equations that you can use, but we basically will go by what's called PV watts. PV stands for photovoltaic. That's what a solar panel is. And if you're a south-facing system, for example, we know historically speaking, you're going to get 1,500 hours of sunlight every year. When we go over to the west, we know you're going to get about 1,300 hours of sunlight every year. East, you're going to get 1,250, and then by the time you get to the north, you're talking about 1,100 hours of sunlight every year. So it does work on the north, but the efficiency, it's less efficient on the north side than it is on the south side. And when I'm trying to demonstrate dollars and cents to my clients, that extra 400, 500 hours of sunlight every year can make a big difference.
Does it really?
When we're charging, oh, sure, yeah.
So then my thought is, there's another piece to the equation, in my opinion, and that would be the amount of panels or the size of the panels that you put up. Mm-hmm. Like you putting up one panel will run your fan. I'm just picking because I have no clue. Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out how much they're using. Am I right?
Yeah.
To figure out how much space you're going to put up.
Correct. So we're going to go into the main feed of the house no matter what. So, even if it's one panel, it's going to go into your main breaker and just power everything in the house just, fractionally. But typically when we're trying to size the system, what we will do is figure out how much consumption the customer has ahead of time, and then we size the system accordingly.
Okay, so can you size the system to do a whole house, air conditioner, the whole 9 yards?
Yeah.
Including a pool?
Yeah, everything. Well, because all those components that you're talking about are already part of your current power bill. So when we're looking at your current power bill, we're looking at that entire mix of everything that's inside the house. So we're not powering each individual appliance, we're powering the entire house.
So I come to you and I say, hey, I want to get solar for my house. Mm-hmm. What's the first thing you do?
First thing I do is say, let me take a look at the power bill. So we're going to look at the power bill, and we're going to see how much power you consume. A regular house, just for a regular person, let's say they're consuming, let's call it 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, 2,000 kilowatt hours a month. Then we would reverse engineer, and we would say, okay, if we want to offset 2,000 kilowatt hours a month, we need to have this size system. And then you kind of go from there. The next restriction would be how much roof space do you have, right? And
I would think so.
Sure. And so some people have great big power bills, but only a little bit of roof space. Sometimes it's the other way around. They have a little power bill and a great big roof space. Those are the ones we love because we just go south facing and we're done.
There's so many pieces to what you do because besides that, you also now affect a roof.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Are the people affected insurance-wise because of solar panels?
There is definitely a new and kind of evolving situation going on in the insurance marketplace. I could give you the long answer or the short answer, but the short answer is, there are a lot of pressures in the insurance industry to begin with. And so some of these companies just want nothing to kind of do with solar. They don't want to think about it. The good news is there's a laundry list of companies that will cover solar panels, but there are a handful of companies that just kind of turned a deaf ear to it or a blind eye to it, and they're just not interested right now because they're facing so many other pressures.
Okay, so I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. I think I got this.
Okay.
You probably prefer to do solar panels on new construction before the tile and stuff is up?
That is a preference. It's not necessary. I'd say
Right.
80% of our work is retrofit, meaning we go back after the house is already built. But we actually specialize in new construction. And so that's probably part of the reason that I know the roofer that you're referring to is we'll go in on a new construction project and we'll work on that together. And so the advantage there is there's like conduit that we can hide in the walls. When the new roof is going on, we can have our footers, into the roof, and then the roofer comes around and seals around us. So there's a lot of advantages to kind of working with the other trades folks when they're actually building the house. So a re-roof or new construction is always nice, but we do retrofits all day. Sorry.
Okay. Who's your clientele?
So our clientele is as broad-based as the appeal of solar. Anybody who wants to save money on their power bill is theoretically our clientele. So you would need to own your own house, typically, right?
Be a good start.
That's a good start. Yeah. It was, so like condos, or excuse me, rental units. That's not going to be an eligible customer. If you're in a condo, it's possible but unlikely. You would need all your condo, neighbors to kind of go in on it. But a single-family home that owns their own roof or owns their own house, and and has a newish roof, and I would say, let's call it 7 years or newer, is somebody that's a target client for us. We specifically have a tendency to target the higher end houses, but we do tons of regular houses just like mine, normal houses, all day long.
All right. Is it an advantage, because we live in Florida and we live in the hurricane capital of the world, to have solar? Because when your power goes out,
Sure.
most of us have generators, but that is a process.
Right.
Got to get gas or propane, got to start it up, got to hope it stays. Can't keep it in the house, so you put it outside and someone's going to steal it. There's so many people. I mean, and it's not a terrible way to go. It was the status quo for people who had money and wanted to turn on their air conditioner and keep that. Is Florida, because we have so many hurricanes and so many power outages, an advantage, or every state does a lot of solar?
I would say that, Florida is actually way behind. So we're
Really?
we're way. There's states in the Northeast United States, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, that just blow us out of the water when it comes to solar adoption. The reason for that, though, is they have a lot of different incentives up there. They have state-level incentives. In Florida, we don't have any state-level incentives. There's a federal tax credit, which the recent legislation just pushed it up to 30%, and that's applicable to anybody in the country. But there is no specific incentive in the state of Florida. So for that reason, like I said, Northeast United States, California, Colorado, who actually have incentives, they've left us in the dust. But we are catching up. And the reason we're catching up is because of that grid parity where I was telling you. Our electricity has traditionally always been cheaper than the rest of the country, but now it's finally getting to be a little bit more expensive. We're in FP&L territory right now. We're at 12.7 cents. Next year we'll be at 13 and change, and so on and so on. And so as a result of that, you're seeing more volume, but we are still generally low market penetration. But to answer your question about hurricanes, so there's two things that are important about hurricanes. Number one, believe it or not, it's kind of counterintuitive, but a solar system will actually strengthen your roof. Because if you think about it, what we're doing on a shingle roof, for example, we're going into the trusses, right, with a 3.5-inch lag bolt into the trusses. Out pops a footer, and then we've got a bunch of rails. So if we never slid the panels in, what we've actually done is created an exoskeleton on your roof. And so downward pressure is more of a function rather than upward pressure when it comes to hurricanes. So that's number one. Number two, with respect to hurricanes, many of our systems are what are called grid-tied systems. So you're going to engage in a program called net metering, where you can sell excess power to the grid. But the downside to that is when the grid goes down, your solar system goes down also. And the only way around that is if you have batteries. So batteries they're there. The technology is there. The price point is not quite where it needs to be. We're talking right now we're in August of 2022. I would say in another year or two, you start to see the prices of those batteries come down. But right now, the prices of batteries are through the roof, and the demand is also through the roof. So they're not really motivated to drive down the pricing. But that's the only way you can have power during a grid outage, is if you attach your solar system to a battery.
Okay. We're getting to the top of our time, but I have to ask this question. People with modular homes or mobile homes ever do solar?
Manufactured homes, yes. And if you own your modular home or your mobile home outright, then that's not a problem. The finance companies, though, will give you a hard time on a mobile or a mobile. They'll usually lend to a manufactured, but not to a mobile.
Interesting. And the reason I ask is because when I moved up here, I have a condo in Green Acres, and I moved up here, and I didn't move up here, but I was coming back, so I bought a mobile home.
Okay.
And I actually didn't mind living there. You know, I'm a Brooklyn boy, so
Sure.
it's like kind of weird to live in a mobile home. But I ended up renting out my condo and living in it until I bought my house now. But I would think that a mobile home is small, probably easy to work on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I say that, but I have 1,350 square feet in my mobile home.
Okay.
And I have a east-west roof.
Okay.
So I don't have a south roof.
Well, east-west works. East-west works.
Okay.
It's just not as efficient as south.
Right,
Okay.
but I would think a mobile home doesn't. I don't know that I would use. I use as much. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Okay, how do people find you? You have a website?
So sailfishsolar.com is our website, and that's for all commercial and residential.
And a phone number?
The phone number, the office line is, the local line is 772-934-9091.
Everybody, again, just think of it this way. Think about how many times you had a power outage and how much money you lost in food. Okay, 1. 2 is it gets darn hot in Florida without power. Okay, and 3 is don't think you have the answer because you have a generator, because generators use propane, gas, and if you don't have a Generac with a big tank and you have like just 10 or 11,000, you still got to gas and you got to put it somewhere. You can't leave it in the house, and so many get stolen.
Sure.
So check out solar. I want to thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Absolutely. Can I add a number 4 there?
Sure.
So if I was going to add a number 4, I would say you're paying for it anyway, right? You're renting the power. You're paying that money to the utility company anyway. All we're doing is diverting the payment towards a solar system, which you can own outright. And you'll typically get an 8-year payback period on equipment that's warranted for 25 or 30 years.
Is that what it is, 8 years? Is that where the
8-year payback, yeah, that's about right.
And as things change, it will get shorter and shorter, I guess.
The higher the cost of electricity, the lower that payback goes.
Use a professional. Mike, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Sailfish Solar. Everybody will be right back.
Awesome.